Welcome to Sparking Dark's Life Coaching. Session 6, Overwhelmed. Overwhelm rarely arrives like a storm. It seeps in like mist, a fine, invisible damp that settles on everything you mean to do, until even simple motions feel heavy. You notice it in the way your thoughts scatter at small noises, in the way you scroll when you meant to speak, in the way you fall into bed, sure you were busy, yet unsure what you actually finished. It is a quiet fatigue, not from lifting too much, but from lifting everything a little and setting nothing down. Ancient martial artists spoke of standing in a forest of spears, every blade pointed at your neck. The instruction that followed was severe but merciful. Stay calm, choose one opponent, finish decisively, then move to the next. Panic multiplies enemies, presence subtracts them. In ordinary living, it preserves days, projects, relationships, and the dignity we reclaim when we stop scattering ourselves across 100 starts and honor the power of one true finish. Most of us are not in crisis, yet the ordinary demands of a human life can press in until the familiar feels like siege, bills to pay, rooms to clean, people to call, promises to keep. Consider Sarah. Saturday dawned wide and generous, the kind of morning that promises a fresh start before a single step is taken. Sun slid through the kitchen window, touching a checklist in her mind already thick with possibility. Clean the bathroom, run the laundry, buy groceries, meet mom for lunch, tidy the living room, and maybe sit with a book she kept meaning to read. She began with the bathroom, because beginnings feel clean. Halfway through the mirror, she remembered the laundry hamper overflowing and decided to be efficient. Downstairs, she loaded the machine, poured detergent, and pressed the button that promised momentum. As she climbed back toward the bathroom, her phone rang. Her mother's voice, warm and expectant, floated through. "Remember our lunch today?" Sarah smiled and said, "Of course." Passing the kitchen, she saw her grocery list, a thin column of missing staples. If she shopped before lunch, she could check another box and arrive with bags already put away. At the store, the line stretched and the clock advanced. By the time she paid and reached her car, a text blinked on her screen. Her mother had waited and left. A small, stinging disappointment settled in her chest. Back home, she set bags on the table and remembered Charlie, her dog, who had been patient for too long. She opened the back door and he shot into the yard, a burst of uncomplicated joy. Passing the living room, she saw a mess, the protest of a creature whose timing and bladder had met the limits of courtesy. She plugged in the vacuum and pushed long, deliberate lines into the carpet's nap. A third of the way through, the milk and greens on the table tugged at the corner of her attention. She set the vacuum aside and returned to the kitchen to finish putting the groceries away before anything spoiled. She was on the last bag when the doorbell rang. Her neighbor, friendly and bright, stood on the porch with an easy invitation, a quick walk. Sarah said yes because she wanted to be the kind of neighbor who belongs by more than an address. Halfway around the block, she apologized and turned back, the afternoon already collapsing under the weight of its options. She hurried to the bathroom where the mirror still held half its haze. She lifted the sponge and her phone rang again. Her mother's concern poured into the room, loving and insistent. "Are you all right? I worried when you did not make it." They talked and then kept talking because love makes room for explanations that stretch. An hour and a half later, Sarah hung up, tender and tired, aware that hunger had entered the conversation with its plain request. She ordered a chicken sandwich and a side salad from her phone, then sank into the couch while the app marked time in cheerful micro-updates. Dinner arrived warm and fragrant. She turned on the television intending to rest for a moment and drifted for a couple of hours inside someone else's story. Eventually, she crossed the dim house toward bed, every unfinished thing humming at the edges of her awareness. As she slid under the covers, a soft sound passed through the quiet, a whimper and a scratch at the back door. Charlie. She had never brought him in. In that realization, she understood the cost of being everywhere at once and nowhere long enough to finish. If you recognize yourself in Sarah, set down your self-judgment and pick up your method. She did not lack effort. She lacked finish. Each new start rewarded her brain with a bright spark that felt like momentum. Novelty is a persuasive liar. It promises progress and delivers fragments. What we need is not more energy, but more completion. In lean practice, there is a name for the antidote: one-piece flow. Touch one task, walk it to done, and only then lay a hand on the next. The forest is felled one tree at a time, not by nicking every trunk in a circle until you have a ring of wounded wood and no lumber to show for it. Follow through is a love letter to your future self. We celebrate starting with fanfare, fresh notebooks, new apps, plans announced to friends. Finishing is quieter and domestic. It is the sink actually clean after the mirror, the laundry folded and put away, the call returned and concluded, the bill paid to zero. Completion builds the slow, steady trust from which lives are made. When overwhelm rises, widening your aim invites more rivals into the ring. Narrow it, and your nervous system hears evidence that it can rest, because you have a clear fight and a single target. How do we live the martial instruction in a civilian day? Begin by naming a single opponent. Not everything in the house, but finish cleaning the bathroom. Not get my life together, but pay the electric bill. Then build a container for your attention. That might be a 30-minute timer, a closed door, a phone in a drawer, or a sticky note on the counter that says "Return here." During that time, fight one fight. When you are done, exhale and pivot. You do not collect new opponents en route to the next. You move cleanly and decisively. There is tenderness in this discipline. Many of us learn to measure worth in busyness, to earn belonging by showing up tired. We confuse motion for meaning and noise for necessity. Integrity is quieter. It is the alignment of intention and action, the honesty of a promise kept, even if only to yourself. When you practice one-piece flow, the background hum begins to fade. You stop rehearsing every possible failure and begin rehearsing follow-through. Start, finish, move on. The forest of spears remains useful because overwhelm feels like danger. It is not mortal, but it is erosive. It grinds patience into powder and chews at presence until even small joys taste flat. In the circle of blades, calm is not a feeling that appears. It is a behavior you choose. You orient your gaze, breathe into your belly, and decide who goes first. You finish completely, not because the other threats do not matter, but because your life cannot be lived in parallel. You pivot to the next without apology. This is also how we befriend lists. A long list looks like a verdict. You are behind, you will always be behind. You are not equal to the sum of these lines. A truer way is to treat the list as a cue. Only the front item matters in this moment. When it is complete, the list does not just shrink, it loses authority over your mood. The sight of your own check marks changes your posture more surely than any affirmation. Over days and weeks, the forest recedes. The path is never empty, but it becomes navigable. Interruptions will come. The neighbor will knock. A parent will need half an hour when you had 5. The dog will have needs that cannot be postponed. One-piece flow is not brittle perfectionism. It is resilient focus. The art is not to prevent interruption, but to return with grace. Leave a marker, a sponge on the sink, a sticky note that says mirror, a timer paused but still visible. When you resume, begin with the last small action completed and take the next one. You are re-entering the stream exactly where you left it. Compassion must hold this all together. When Sarah finally heard Charlie scratch at the door, remorse bloomed. Maybe you have felt its cousins. I am always behind. I am unreliable. I cannot be trusted. Those sentences corrode will. Replace them with useful truths. I am learning to finish. I can keep one promise for the next 10 minutes. I am allowed to go slowly. Dignity is built in increments too small to impress anyone but your future self. In my work with people who carry more than their share, parents working two jobs, leaders shepherding teams through change, students building a future out of late nights and early mornings, the practical shift that liberates them is modest and revolutionary. Starting is a spark. Finishing is warmth. Starting is a blueprint. Finishing is shelter. Practice completion and your days will take shape again. You will remember what you did not because it was done. The mind trusts what it can see, and completion leaves evidence you can point to when doubt returns. Perhaps today your forest is bills, a deadline, and a conversation you dread. Pick the nearest blade. Pay one bill completely, then another. Open the document and draft the paragraph that matters, then the next. Send a simple message. Can we talk tonight? And when the time comes, meet the talk like a fighter who is trained to stay. Keep your list visible, but do not let it command you. Choose, finish, pivot. Hear the sound of a life that completes. It is not a trumpet. It is the click of a cupboard, the sweep of a vacuum that is turned off because the room is already done, the leash lifted for a walk taken before the dog must beg. It is the quiet of a phone face down while you finish the mirror, the satisfaction of groceries put away in one clear session, the relief of making and keeping lunch with your mother because you protected that hour like something sacred. Multiply those sounds across a week, and the soundtrack of your days softens into steadiness. Start, finish, move on. It is not glamorous, but it is truly freeing. It does not depend on a perfect mood, and it does not require new equipment. It turns mist back into air. It takes you, damp with 100 half-started efforts, and shows you how to wring out your sleeves and warm yourself by the friction of finished things. There is only the grace of sequence and the courage of return. Practice it, and the spears will lower because you have learned to look at one point, act with one heart, and complete with one steady breath. And when you forget, and you will, begin again with the nearest blade. Clean the sink entirely, fold the shirts, open the bill, and pay it. Call your mother back and keep the lunch you plan. Let the dog in, clip the leash, walk under whatever sky the day offers, and notice the way your steps fall into rhythm when your mind carries one thing at a time. This is how we become less overwhelmed, not by waiting for a lighter season, but by making light with the weight we already hold, one finished task at a time, again and again, until calm becomes your craft and follow-through becomes your way.